Welcome to CineMyles, the show for cinephiles. I'm your host, Miles Hughes. I'm joined today by my brother, Sasha Hughes, who is, among other things, a very talented actor who has appeared in a number of my old short films, including Resolution and Neo Dameron, which you can check out below. We are here today to talk about our mutual favorite movie, Synecdoche, New York. When I first saw this movie in 2008, my mind was blown. I didn't know what to make of it. I was very confused for the most part. I definitely didn't absorb it all the first time around. But I've seen it about a dozen times since. We just rewatched it, and I think this is what, your second time seeing it?
Yes, I saw it once in theaters with you, and I made a point never to see it again, to cement it as my favorite movie. Because it's such a unique film that I worry that overwatching it would really kind of drag it down.
Yeah.
Though I was really surprised that after watching it for the second time today, a lot of the problems I had with it the first time watching it were somewhat alleviated with a second viewing.
It's one that a lot of people may not have even heard of, and even fewer have seen. It's the directorial debut of Charlie Kaufman, who's best known as the writer of Being John Malkovich, Adaptation, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. It's the only live-action film he's directed, which is such a pity. Apparently, the original concept was that this was him trying to write a horror movie. So this is his idea of a horror movie. Because I would never, ever classify it as horror. It's a blacker-than-soot comedy with some deeply dramatic moments. Very surreal, very almost experimental in its storytelling. The basic setup is that it's about a theater director, played by the late, great Philip Seymour Hoffman, who endeavors to create a life-size replica of New York City inside of a giant warehouse to perform a massive theater piece.
I think he does a very, very good job of creating a work that mirrors life.
Specifically his life. The running theme throughout is that he is always looking inwards rather than outward. He's trying to create something that's accessible, that's universal, but it's all about him and his personal life and the relationships he has with the women in his life.
He always thinks he's sick. He's very worried about his health, even though ironically he is the healthiest person in the entire movie.
Yeah, in a roundabout way, yeah.
He makes these impossibly larger than life theaters with overdone production values. The fundamental point of the story and the main character flaw of the main character is he never picks up on it as it happens.
No.
But every single character is very, very important. He just doesn't realize it until, say, 20 years later. Mm-hmm. And time, speaking of...
Yeah, let's talk about time in this movie. There's an early scene in the kitchen where every time he looks at a date, it's a few days later. Like, he'll look at the newspaper, and it's October 14th, and then he'll look at the milk carton, and it's November, and he'll look at the calendar, and it's December, and it just keeps flying on like he's stuck in this rut. 40, 50 years transpire over the course of the film, and I have to touch on this. The makeup is astounding. It's very subtle, it's very gradual, but you do see all the characters age over time.
And it perfectly starts off very, very quickly. Very slow receding hairline at the beginning of the film where time's a little bit slower, and then towards the middle of the film where big jumps are being made, between one scene and the next, suddenly his hair's a little bit thinner, it's a little bit grayer. And this happens to most of the characters.
Yeah.
And so it's not just Philip Seymour Hoffman. Everyone very, very slowly changes.
And the actors play it magnificently. This movie has such an embarrassment of riches as far as the cast. I mean, before he passed away, I would have said Philip Seymour Hoffman was the best working actor. Like, his legacy of work is astounding, and this might be one of his best performances, if not his best. He bears his soul for the camera, and it's, heart-stopping to watch, but he goes for it.
And he's made his career of playing very, very heartfelt characters, like characters who bear their souls, even if they're less than likable characters, or even downright creepy characters.
Mm-hmm. Part of the reason why this film hits so hard for me is that it is about these universal themes. Like, in a way, the film itself is the grand testament to humanity that his character is trying to create within the film. So much of the film is defined by the editing, because it is, like, entire scenes will happen in a single shot, and, like, not even a very long shot. It'll just, like, oh, here's a little moment. Oh, here's him somewhere else. Like, I don't know what the budget for this movie was, because you got to imagine it's an independent production, more or less, but, like, there's so many locations, and there's so many characters, and there's so much going on. There's so much to it. Let's talk really quick about why people don't like this movie. Because it has, I think, like a 60-something on Rotten Tomatoes. It was not a financial success. A lot of people who have seen it don't like it. And I completely understand why. For starters, it is very pretentious. It is an incredibly pretentious movie. There are a few jokes that are just for the sake of jokes, and sometimes it's wordplay, like the title itself, because it all takes place in Synecdoche, New York, but it's also, you know...
It's a Synecdoche.
It's a Synecdoche. It's a smaller thing representing a larger thing, and vice versa. There's all these little flourishes that are very true to Charlie Kaufman's work, but can come across as very, like, cutesy. I've shown this film to a number of friends, and... like, Kristen Walsh hates this movie, partially because she has a bias against anything involving sad old people, and this is kind of like the sad old people porn in a way. Not in that way, but you know what I mean. Like, there's just a lot of it. Or even Franklin, who's, you know, usually pretty open-minded, and he appreciates it, but would not call it one of his favorites. So I think it is tough, and it is a movie. Honestly, you were talking about how you try and make a point not to watch it too close together. I've seen it a number of times, and it's one of those movies that, like, I learn a little bit more every time I watch it. I pick up on little details. You know, one running subtext that I hadn't picked up on the first few times is gender identity, and this element of, because the Ellen character we never really meet, but, like, gradually the two of them almost become the same character, and, you know, you got Diane Wiest actually playing the actress playing that character, but then at a certain point Hoffman's character is playing this person Ellen, who we've never met, and, like, you learn about her backstory, and it's not that dissimilar to his, and a lot of the struggles she have, and it all goes together into this theme of sort of like, we all have this universal experience, and we all are trying to come to terms with it. It actually is a very interesting comparison to another hugely ambitious independent film, Cloud Atlas, which is almost like the polar opposite in a way. They're both trying to get at the same, these sort of universal messages, but whereas Cloud Atlas kind of has the rose-tinted glasses sort of thing, where it's like, you know, the world would be a better place if we just believe in each other and, you know, protect each other and, you know, fight against the people who would oppress us. Whereas this film is like, nope, everything is terrible, everyone is miserable, you are not special for feeling miserable, deal with it.
Everyone's miserable, but that misery brings us together if we accept other people's misery.
Sure. Yeah.
But yes, whereas Cloud Atlas is much more, we're all miserable, but we're all happy if we work together.
Yeah. We can create a wonderful utopia for each other if we just believe. I love Cloud Atlas, and I'm going to do a video on Cloud Atlas, but this is not that.
I have the hardest time recommending Synecdoche, New York. One, because I can never spell it correctly. It's so abstract, and it's so fast-paced, while not feeling fast-paced.
Yeah, it feels longer than it is. It's only about 2 hours long, but it feels like 3 hours. You're not going to feel good watching this movie. Like, the ending is one of my favorite endings of all time, but it is a sucker punch. Most times I've watched this movie, I've just, like, sat there through the credits, just like...
At the same time, that's a really hard thing to then recommend to someone. Like, yes, there are problems with this movie, but they're on purpose.
Yes.
It's a hard sell.
That's why I can't get too mad at anything that other people would perceive as an issue, because it's all so purposeful and it's very intentional. Don't write it off the first time you've seen it. Like, I would recommend watching it a few times to really wrap your mind around it, because there's so many little details. It is jam-packed. Every single scene has so many little things that, whether it's setups and payoffs or foreshadowing or just little jokes in the background, there's so friggin' much going on, and it all really does enhance your understanding of what's going on and what to make of it. If you like out there abstract movies, if you're into the Coen brothers or David Lynch or, you know, even obviously some of Charlie Kaufman's other movies, give it that shot, because there is so much going on, and if you let it, it will have a massive impact on you.
If you like movies that do something very unique, if you like movies that absolutely everything has a point, If you like movies that are very much you can kind of really dig into, and if you really, really want a really good discussion piece, because whether you love it or hate it, anybody can discuss this movie because there is so much to discuss. But if you're just one of those people that I'm going to a movie to kind of forget and take up some time, it's a much harder sell.
Yeah, this is not a movie to casually watch. It's definitely not a movie to have on, like, in the background, because every now and then you glance at it, it's like, you want to know what the hell is going on.
No.
You'll be watching it intently, and you'll still be kind of sitting there like, I don't know what the hell's going on. But yeah, that's Synecdoche, New York, so, you know, if you're curious, check it out. We both highly recommend it. So thank you for watching CineMyles. Thank you, Sasha, for joining me.
Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
And be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, do all those fun things, and be sure to stay tuned for more. And if you have any recommendations or requests for films you'd like to see us review, please let me know in the comments. Have a good night.